Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is I gotta crush up these spices. I think, oh yeah, they're definitely cold now. Once I crush up the spices, I think I'm ready to where I can start cutting vegetables and start working them into the pot. Okay, so I've got cumin and coriander seeds, whole seeds here, and I'm working them into a very small little mortar and pestle. And I'm gonna go ahead and start pounding those guys down. The narrow one keeps the spices down inside pretty well. And then I'm gonna I like to turn it over and really start crushing the stuff with the top of it. So I break up the whole spices before I start putting in the powdered stuff. I haven't added chili powder yet. I haven't added oregano. That stuff's just gonna get in the way as I'm trying to really grind stuff up. And so it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna keep on going. Nice and toasty aroma in the air, if I may say. And it's looking very, very fine, okay? Very fine. I'm gonna throw in a little oregano. A lot of oregano in Latin cuisine, south of the border, if you will. That's Sonoran Desert. It's growing all over the place down there. A little chili powder. I use about the same amount of chili powder typically as I do cumin. Okay, that's a little heavy. And this is a chipotle chili powder that I have around today. Okay, that's just what I got. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of crush that up together, just blend it. And there is my spice blend. There's no salt in this or anything, but those are my Mexican spices. I'm probably not even going to use all of that. I got a couple of bay leaves, as I said. And let me get my pot on fire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this pot on a very, very low heat, and I'm going to start heating up some fat. Let me do a little quick wipe down here too. Got spices on there. It's witty. Mr. Rubin is there. Good to see you, sir. Monica, awesome. Good to see you. Oh yes, I'm having a little sip. You guys can't tell. Let's go over here and get some fat to cook with. So we said those Latin flavors are kind of like lard and maybe chorizo or bacon or something like that. What I have here is a mix of chicken and duck fat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use this and see if this works for me. Okay, I have a feeling there's many a Mexican mama probably had a little duck fat in her stash, right? And so that's what I'm going to use right now. And I'm just going to throw a little bit in there. Remember, the fat is the vehicle for the flavor. Okay, so fat is necessary. I'm not a low-fat guy, but if I was, I would have to compensate for extra aromatics, extra herbs and spices and things like that if I don't have the fat to carry those flavors to the dish, right? I'm going to leave that fat out just in case I need it. And I've got this on that flame on about 2 out of 10. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is work some garlic. Okay. You guys have probably seen me do garlic before if you've been hanging out with me. Let's see. I got Kim out there. Good to see you. And this garlic has a little funky little thing on his butt. I'm going to do a little surgery there. Get that off of there. My goodness. How embarrassing. And then this one still has a little skin on it. It's got that little woody stem over on one side, and that skin is just falling off. Okay, the skin's all gone. It's all gone now. And I'm going to crush these guys, and I'm going to start them off in my fat in the pot. What I'm doing is flavoring my fat like garlic. I just brought my knife through that garlic really, really quick before I kind of knew it was done before I knew it. And now I'm dragging my blade over the garlic again, smashing it. And now I'm going to draw it toward the center. I'm going to run my knife through it maybe one more time, and I think I'm about done. I don't think you're going to see much of that garlic by the end of this once it's cooked down. Right? And that's how I do it for, you know, a tomato sauce or something, anything where it's just going to kind of disappear into the dish. So I'm going to go ahead. Now, this fat is not even melted in the pan. It's super, super low. And so I'm not in any danger of browning. I really want to point out here, don't throw that garlic in super hot fat, guys. It's just going to burn on you. You got to pitch it and cool the pan down, start all over again. Okay, so this is very, very low heat. I just want to infuse garlic flavor into that fat right now. So don't crank it. I'm going to kick it up maybe to, I think I had it on 2. Maybe it's on 3 now. Maybe 3.5. Okay, and so The garlic's very sticky. Let me do a little quick wipe down here. And I'm going to start cutting an onion. It's usually garlic, then onion, right? It's kind of a progression. That's one of the things I always tell my students is look for patterns, guys. Look for patterns. You will see the same things. This sweating process is exactly what I'm talking about. You see the same process in dish after dish after dish. You start with oil, throw in your garlic, add your onion, and then add your and your on and on, right? Look for patterns. Cooking ain't rocket science, guys. This stuff is so easy. So easy. All you have to do is remember everything all the time. Nobody gets me. Nobody gets me. Ms. Melanie, good to see you out there. All right. Yeah, this onion was ugly on the outside, but she's beautiful on the inside, right? Okay. I would have so many students like throwing an onion away like that and not even looking inside. So make sure you're checking. That's food. You never want to throw it away. There's a little tiny little bit to get rid of there, a little tuma. And the rest of this onion's looking even better. A little bit to get rid of there, but the rest of that onion is prime aromatic quality right there. So let me just do a little surgery. Boom. And a little surgery right there. Very little. And I think this onion's nice and cleaned up, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and dice this onion up the same size as my little corn and my little beans that I had, right? And so that's what you're gonna see right now. Get that out of the way, get that out of the way. And my garlic appears to be kind of sizzling, by the way. So I'm rolling it around in there. And you know what? I'm not even gonna put it back on the fire. Fire's still on. I'm gonna cut this onion. And when I throw the onion in there, it's gonna cool things off and I'm gonna pull it back on the fire, okay? I don't often touch my knobs, you know. I will, well, let me rephrase that. I don't often turn my stove down, but I will move pots and pans around, okay? Is that appropriate? And now I'm going across and dicing this onion up. I think I've done plenty of classes on this little thing right here. You guys are experts. That garlic smells so damn awesome. Damn. I love garlic. Anybody that tells me to put less garlic in something, well, I just don't even want to say. I don't want to start another fight about the hummus around this house. You put too much garlic in the hummus one time. All right, TJ, good to show up. Thanks for showing up, brother. All right, I got Melanie out there. Sandra, good to see you. Kim, hey, if I haven't said it already, guys, let's do one of these. It is quarantine kitchen happy hour after all. Let's get one of these in us. I am tipping a extremely delicious red wine right now. My goodness. I'm going to take this onion right now. I'm going to throw it in the pot, right? Another thing I'm going to do, throw in that pot, is a little pinch of salt. And when I do that, that salt is going to kind of work into those onions, start helping to draw a little moisture off. Some of you guys might know about science junk. When some cell wall, a semi-permeable cell wall comes in contact with a little salt, salt's going to move in and moisture is going to move out. I need a little backup of salt here. Let me get some more. I got to talk about my production staff. I'm going to blame the empty salt on my non-existent production staff, my alter ego. All right. Sorry, folks. Long and tall and dark and lovely. Boy, I'm going to need some salt. Somebody write that down for me, okay? Somebody get that written down for me. All right. So I'm going to throw a little salt in there. This is not for seasoning purposes. This is for helping to draw a little moisture out. Because again, we're trying to, accomplish that drawing out of moisture, out, if you will. Okay. That's what we're really trying to accomplish right here. So let me get a little stir going on there. And I'm kind of moving that garlic around so she don't burn so much, you know. And now, things are just kind of in there sweating gently, ever so gently, okay? While that's sweating, hey, I think I'll work up a little piece of celery here, okay? So I got 2 pieces of celery, actually. Before I do that, let me wipe my board. I got a little bit of salt there, and away we go. Now, here is my celery. I like to cut my celery into manageable pieces. Look how long my blade is. I don't want my celery to be longer than that because I'm going to go sideways on that celery next. Get rid of that. I'm throwing that little haircut into the stock pot for later. But if I have a long knife, or if I cut these down to the length of my blade, I can go lengthwise now in one smooth cut and get a perfectly straight line every time. Perfectly straight. I don't like that oddball piece. Into the stock pot she goes. Perfectly straight. Whoa, we got celery flying. I'm going to cut across the front, the face. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I'm down to about 2 right now. I don't want it to get away from me, and I don't want it to start getting brown on me. If I start seeing brown, I'm going to hit it with a little water. Very important. Browning cannot occur if there is water in the pot. So if you start seeing browning in something, like I'm making clam chowder, it's white, and I don't want brown, hit it with a little water, okay? Get that browning to stop dead in its tracks, and then you can kind of start cooking again, okay? So if I see garlic browning or something like that, you better believe I'm going to just drop a little bloop of water in there, a little bloop, and then I'm back in business, okay? So I just got celery in there. Right now it started with fat, then it was garlic, then it was onion, then it was celery. I'm on about 2 out of 10. And I'm gonna start doing, not a perfect dice on these guys, but I will start cutting this carrot down into manageable sizes, okay? So this narrow end, hey, maybe I cut that into quarters. So I'll have little kind of triangle shapes, kind of, okay? And then this bigger end, maybe I cut this guy down into sixths. Sixths. Boy, try and say that word. Maybe if I was British, sixths. That works better. Okay, so those veggies are just sweating very, very gently, extremely gently. I'm going in with carrot next. We're making chicken soup. And now that I've got these 3 aromatic veggies in here, I'm really going to start cooking. So I'm turning this up to about 5 out of 10. And I'm going to get those spices. Remember I said sweating is where we start working in the spices. So here's a couple of bay leaves, okay? And then I'm just going to start working in the spice blend that we just made. Again, it's chili powder, cumin seed, equal parts. And then I worked in a little extra coriander seed just for luck. And then I threw in about a half a tablespoon of oregano, okay? I'm going to work in this spice. I might have even made extra here, which is cool. I'll work that into something else. Let me rinse off. What's happening right now? The flavor in the spice is in the oils in the spice. Spices are oil-based. You ever try and throw like cinnamon or chili powder onto cold water? It just sits there, clumps up, right? Since they're oil-based, and since I'm warming them in a pan with oil in it, the oils and the spices that have all the flavor in them are now moving into the fat in the pan. This is what I'm talking about. The fat that I started with is the vehicle for the DNA, the flavor DNA of this dish. Does that make sense to anybody out there? Ms. Hannah, good to see you. Mr. TJ. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Let's do one of these. We're in the middle of quarantine we're in the middle of quarantine kitchen happy hour, folks. We're going through the clear soup technique, right? We're making a Mexican flavored chicken soup here, but it could have easily been a curry chicken soup. It could have easily been a Chinese chicken soup. It could have been a Thai curry chicken soup, right? We know how to make all of those different things now after this class, right? This stuff makes you smarter. Maybe not smarter, but yeah, I don't know. Not more intelligent, but smarter about more things. How about that, right? If you learn one thing in this class, I've made you a little bit smarter. You're welcome. Yes, this is good stuff. This class, this original class, how to cook all of the things, right? This was originally for a class I did for foster kids that were moving from the foster system into adulthood, right? They cut them off at a certain point and now they got to go be adults. And so these kids are coming in and I try to think of what is the most valuable thing I could think of? Well, if they got about 8 or 10 spices in their cabinet and they got a bunch of ingredients around the house, whether it's canned tomatoes or whether it's a thing of rice or whether it's a thing of potatoes, right? Or a thing of ground beef or whatever it is, if you know how to use the spices in a dish and know how to sweat this stuff in there, hey, you can go around the world with this stuff. You can take it any direction you want to go. I got an old student out here, Mr. Scott. Good to see you, sir. I'm sure he's heard me say this a time or two back in his day. And that was a long time ago, Mr. Scott. That's right. Okay, so my veggies are kind of just cooking along. They're not quite sweated out. If I add my broth in here right now, this soup is going to taste like it's got a bunch of raw vegetables in it. I want these vegetables to get that translucent look to them. That's when I know they've got that raw flavor has been cooked out of them. That's the way to say it, okay? When a vegetable is cooked, the raw flavor's gone. That's what I'm looking for. That acidity is cooked out of the vegetable. The flavors have softened, they've sweetened. We've cooked the moisture out of them, so flavors have concentrated as well. Lots of things happening in this sweating process. This is why I built a whole class just out of this thing that it just seems so easy. Throw your stuff in the pan, sweat it out. What's the big deal? But this is where the DNA is built. Scott, 11 years. Oh my gosh, man. I can't believe it. Wow. 11 years ago. You were about my 3rd or 4th class, I think, as a matter of fact. That was a pretty early class. I think that was back in the Qitchen Academy days, if anybody remembers that business. That was pretty cool. The Qitchen Academy was one of the coolest programs ever. We got to build that thing into an image of our own liking, and it was freaking badass. I had a couple of, I built every class, man. I was just like putting buffets in there and live fire exercises and just like, rah, 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 you know, everybody's on a station. We're calling tickets out and everything. And breakfast day, you know, firing eggs to order and everything, you know, just cranking out the eggs and stuff with students. That stuff was a blast. And I still do it. I still do it. When COVID's over, I'll go back to it, I'm sure. Oh, yes. Okay, so I am going to say that these vegetables have been cooking for a little while. I think I'm going to kind of work on a few other veggies here. I had some butternut squash, and this butternut squash is going to need to cook a little bit. So let me work that on in there too. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to just break this whole thing out. I think I've cleaned 2 butternut squashes already on this little escapade. So I'm just going to cut the top of this guy off. And I'm just going to use this little chunk to add a little more veggie in there. La, 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 la. I'm going to throw that right in my fridge for now. I'll use the rest of that on another day. These butternut squashes, any of these hard winter squashes, we're out of the season for them a little bit, but these are excellent for your quarantine kitchen, guys. They just hold up. So easy to prepare. You can see I'm just going around the world on this, long, smooth strokes. It's kind of how we clean pineapples and, you know, fruit. Boy, yeah, that stuff really suctioned onto my knife there. Couldn't get that squash off of there. Whew. And so I've turned my pot way, 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 way down here, okay? I'm just gonna dice this thing up, work it in there, cook that. You know, it's a little softer than those other vegetables. It won't take very long to do. And so here we go. Now, if you have a knife that has those little divots along the edge, those are called cullens. And that's a good knife for this job. Also, like things like cucumbers, where everything wants to stick to your blade. Those cullens keep they kind of break the suction. Right now I'm cutting little stick shapes basically, and then I'm going to cut those into dices. I'm just going really quickly here, catching up with a pan. And this, again, it's not about Instagram food here. I'm just cooking a nice dinner out of ingredients that, heck, you know, that I had laying around. I don't think anything I'm using here is too far out. You know, if you don't have duck fat, of course, you know, just use vegetable oil or whatever, you know, butter or whatever fat you got around, okay? If you do have the authentic fat of the cuisine, you definitely want to lean in that direction though. But if you don't have that, hey, you can make a tasty batch of tacos or something out of some taco meat and this same spice blend we're talking about right here. Get the flavor Bible, people. That's what I tell my students. When you're starting to work with different flavor profiles, look at the classics, right? I always talk about, I'll talk at you. I always talk about things like, tomato, garlic, basil, right? This classic combination. Why do you think we see that so often, right? It's because it friggin' works. It tastes delicious together, right? If you look at the classics, there's a reason they are classics. As you're starting out, work with those classics. Make little adjustments. Make an Italian sauce, an Italian tomato sauce. And then, hey, next time you add a little of that fennel seed I was talking about in there. Oh, wow, that's another step. That's another development, right? And then add something else next time and add something else. And maybe finish it next time with a little fresh pesto at the end or something. Boom, there's that explosion at the end of freshness, right? All of these little things. This is how you develop your palate. This is why we kind of teach classics in the beginning, so you kind of get that base flavor kind of DNA built into your mind, that memory of those flavors, and then you build from that. So in goes my squash. Boop. And in she goes. I'll turn that heat up a little more. And we're going to get back into cooking proper, okay? Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to work in my tomato. I want to cook this down. See how it's all raw and watery like? I'm going to add this in there, and that's going to be a cooking medium for the squash. If I don't do that, the squash tends to start sticking. So this tomato is just like adding a little bit of water in there. And now that I've got that wet tomato in there, I can really kick this up, and I just turned it up to about 7 out of 10, okay? It's wet, it's sizzling, right? That's all that water cooking out of it. And I want this tomato to change color a half a shade, okay? I don't want raw red tomato. I want it to kind of be raw, cooked like rusty looking tomato, or like the color of sun-dried tomato, like, right? So I want a little color change here. I've spread everything out, and I'm gonna step away a little bit. I don't mind if I get a little color in the pan at this point. Okay, everything's kind of spread out, so those veggies are touching the surface of that hot metal. It's all beautiful stuff, okay? Let's see. Sandra, this is just another reminder that I need new knives. Hey, my knives are not even that sharp, I will tell you. But if you do love on your knives, that's a good reminder, because it was hard to get rid of those. If you do love on your knives and regularly steel them, it's about they'll stay sharp, right? It's about maintaining it, not letting it get too dull. I tend to pull back on mine. I do a pull. Some chefs go this way. I don't like going that way too much with my knife, because I'm trying to build a personality into my knife, right? If I have somebody else go in a different direction, my blade's going to have to start all over. So I do a pull. I do this little maintenance on my blade, and I don't have to steel it quite so much. And it does feel, it's just right back to a razor. If you guys have ever seen the old barbers, right? And they do the straight edge razor on their leather strops, right? It's pretty cool, man. I've seen chefs using those leather strops too, just to get a really, really finely honed edge on their knife. Okay, so starting to see a little bit of that color change. I'm just going to taste a little piece of tomato right now. So this is where the seasoning is going to start coming in, okay? You cannot season if you have not tasted. And I have only put the tiniest little pinch of salt into this thing just to draw moisture out of onions. It wasn't really for seasoning, right? I'm going to add a little more of that Mexican spice to it. Where did I put that? Now, where did it go? It's in this thing right here. My land of thunder. All right. Ooh. I think I just ate a little bit of raw squash. I don't like that. I don't think I like that. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. All right, stirring in that extra spice now. Come on now. My tomato's starting to pick up a little color now. I'm liking it. Oh, dear. Little piece of squash went flying. I got him. He's back in there. Wow. Scott, 11 years, man. I can't believe it. Long time ago. Gonna land far, far away. Spread things out. Maximum surface area in contact with the metal. The next thing I need to do while this is cooking, I'll just cut up a little cabbage. And by the way, cabbage. Now, I want to say I have not been paid by the Cabbage Advisory Board, but I just have to say cabbage is just, it's just special, okay? I buy these cabbages during quarantine and they just hold up for, you know, days and days and days. I can just cut a chunk of this thing off. I can still use it. It's another one of those vegetables that's just going to hold up. In the old days, you know, when somebody got a cabbage, their hands on a cabbage, they were like, this is awesome, right? We got a cabbage. Can you believe this? Okay, so guys, think about cabbage once in a while. You buy a little cabbage, you can just work this stuff into everything, right? And so I just want to say, I do not work for cabbage, but I do like cabbage. So I'm going to cut up a little cabbage and work it into this soup. Brought to you by the Cabbage Advisory Board. I'm actually hoping they will look me up. I've always wanted to work for the Cabbage Advisory Board. Oh, cabbage. I might just grab a little more. I love it so much. I'm going to cut little short pieces of this. I'm cutting across, maybe about an inch, inch and a half, and then I'm going to go across that, making little short batons or batonettes, which means stick or small stick. And I'm going to work that cabbage in there. Cabbage. And that cabbage doesn't really need to work too much in here. I'm picking up a little color in the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that with a little bit of water. Remember what I was saying? If you're ever picking up a little color and you want to control that, you can just add a little water. Browning won't occur in the presence of water. So I just threw a little water in there. I'm kind of deglazing the pan right now. And I'm going to do another little splash of water, tiny splashes. And I'm using my a metal spoon. I like my wooden spoon for this, actually. Let me change that. Some of you might be wondering, why is this guy using metal on metal? Bad chef. So I'm switching to a wooden spoon here, because that is really, this metal on metal scraping, just not nice. All right, so still cleaning up the bottom of this pot. It just had a little browning, okay? I'm gonna add it one more tiny splash, deglazing. Boop. And we're over in the corner, and we're doing good. So now I got some cabbage in there. If you guys think back to the what I was talking about, the soup method that we're talking about, the clear soup method, it was basically cut everything up, sweat the aromatic vegetables out with you know, your spices, and everything's getting sweated out right now. My cabbage is now sweating out, right? It's all kind of working. Add your liquid, simmer, bring to a boil, reduce to a simmer basically, and you're done, right? It's going to simmer for about 5 or 8 minutes, and hey, that's all it is. Okay. All right. Let's see. Turn it around, kind of scraping the bottom with that wooden spoon. I always talk about how much I love my wooden spoon. Okay. You people do not appreciate your wooden spoons enough. I'm telling you. I just know it. I just know it. Okay, I got a couple other things to get together here. Let's start moving. I'm going to start cutting up herbs for my finish here, so you guys can kind of watch that a little bit. Now, one thing that I always do before I do my herbs is to steel my knife. I just did it, but I'm going to do it again, okay? So I think I'll steel this baby one more time. There it is. Yoink, yoink, yoink. I'm using the whole blade. I'm using the whole steel. All right. Carino, good to see you. Okay, so I've got some spring onion bottoms here, and I have just steeled my blade. It is razor sharp, if I may say. And I'm just going to go across the front of these. Now, I don't want to do too much at once. I can get a much cleaner slice if I'm just doing about half and half of that thing. So I just busted that up. I'm turning my pot down, and I think I can probably get going with my liquid, my broth for this soup. Yes, we're there. Let me do one thing, and I will start cutting these herbs. People, people, I think I need a little more wine, too. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.